Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's the Full Metal Show.
City of Craig voters were asked 4 questions. Should the city allow retail sales of marijuana and marijuana products? Should the city allow commercial cultivation of marijuana? Should the city allow commercial processing or manufacturing? And should the city allow licensed marijuana testing? It was an advisory vote, which means the Craig City Council isn't bound by the results, but the results are interesting. They show that the approximately 200 voters who cast ballots in that election are pretty well split. The only question that received a majority of yes votes was the one allowing retail sales, but even that was close. Here's Craig City Manager John Bowling.
There was a 6-vote margin, yeses over noes on the retail sale question, and then a little bit bigger margins for the second and third questions, and then a tie on as to whether or not the city should allow licensed marijuana product testing in Craig. It's a mixed bag for sure.
Here are the numbers. For retail sales, it was 102 yes, 96 no. For cultivation, it was 90 yes, 109 no. For manufacture, 94 yes, 104 no. And for testing, it was tied 99 to 99. Bowling says the reason the issue was placed on the ballot was to get a better idea of what residents want, but the results don't provide that clear direction.
Yeah, the council hasn't really discussed these results yet. I don't know where they're going to go with it, but it's clear there is no mandate one way or the other.
The advisory vote did, though, allow Craig officials to hear from a greater segment of the community than previously. Bowling says there had been public comment at a couple of council meetings, but mostly from one side.
There was a meeting last spring, I think it was April, where there was a contingent in the audience that was strongly in favor of commercial marijuana activity. And at least one subsequent meeting, there were some folks there, some of the same folks were there to follow up on their comments.
Bowling says that the council will talk more about the issue. If the city of Craig does choose to allow commercial marijuana activities within city limits, he says the community's zoning rules will help guide officials. Craig is on Prince of Wales Island, which is not part of an organized borough, and Bowling wasn't sure how the draft state regulations would apply outside of Craig's city limits. Ketchikan Gateway Borough Planning Director Chris French has been following the marijuana regulation process closely. He says that according to the current draft regulations, cities within unorganized parts of the state that choose to ban commercial marijuana businesses also will effectively ban those activities within a 50-mile radius of the city's boundaries, so someone can't set up a pot shop at the edge of city limits. French adds that the current draft permit process for proposed marijuana businesses in areas without any local government still requires a petition signed by residents within a certain radius of the proposed business.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
This is the Full Melt.
The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. FullMelt.com. Toll free. 844-420-TALK. 844-420-TALK.
And coming to you live from the PetPain.com studios, once again, it is a full hour edition of the Full Melt Show. That place in Craig. Craig is a city in Alaska. At least it's a little village or a corporation of some sort. Very few obvious voters in that area, because if you added up the voters, if you listen to that story, if you add up the voters in the story, it's like 100 voting yes and 100 voting no, depending, it's right around that line. So it's like 200 people in this place voting. I mean, even if you take the best of math into consideration and figure, for argument's sake, that the number of people there voting may make up, say, 10% of the population, and I don't think that this works in small communities. I think in small, really tiny communities like this, that you either go vote or you don't. I mean, people either show up to vote and they all do it, or they all stay at home. So I would say that there's likely only, I'd have to look it up, Craig, Alaska. Should I do that? Maybe I'll do that right now. How many people live in tiny Craig, Alaska? Population. Google's such a handy tool. Just, on the fly. Looking up for the population of Craig, Alaska. It's 1,253 people according to 2013 U.S. Census Bureau results. So I was right. Maybe it's 10%. I guess I was wrong. Or maybe I was right in that hardly anybody shows up in small communities like this. It seems there were only 400 votes when they put it to some kind of vote. Only 200 votes. I said 400, didn't I? It's 200 votes. 100 this way, 100 that way. Right in that neighborhood, if you do the math. Anyway, point being that these little tiny communities in places where the entire state has legalized marijuana sales, use, adult use, commercial industry in cannabis have issues like this. So they're split. Some of them want shops. Maybe the shops thing passed, but the cultivation and the manufacture, those ones kind of didn't pass. So it looks like some of these communities in Alaska have a broader, and I guess I got a friend, Justin. Everybody calls him Jenkins. I should get a hold of Jenkins because he's moving to Alaska now. He was out there, and I bumped into him at the Cannabis Cup in Denver, and he lives in Medgar, Oregon or something. I don't know. He's out there in Oregon somewhere. And he just decided to move off to Alaska. So maybe I should ask Jenkins if he knows about this business in Alaska. But the point being that so I guess like in Colorado, you can have ordinances about medical marijuana. You can have ordinances as a local community about retail cannabis. You can have one, have both, or have none. Right? Now, and this is irrespective of growing facilities. So I think growing facilities, you still got to get a state license, but I don't know that you necessarily need a sign-off by the local community. I don't know. In the research that I've done, I've not seen any evidence that you need a sign-off by the local community as far as growing and processing this kind of activity. You might have to locate it in the right section of the city, but I don't think you need a sign-off in order to get a permit from, the MED or whatever in Colorado to grow your cannabis, to process it or grow it, cultivate it, however you manufacture it, whatever you want to call it. You go off to Alaska, and it seems like they've got different tiers. Like they could say no to this kind of cultivation and or no to this kind of processing and or no to dispensaries or places where you could go just purchase it in the area. See, now I got to go back and look because now I'm interested. I've piqued my own interest about what this community decided to do. Now, this vote, I guess, is not binding. That's what the report said. I'll have to play it back but I don't think the report said anything about it being. I think, in fact, it stated right in the report that the vote wasn't binding. Here it is. Retail sales. So this is for if you can just go buy it at a store somewhere. The vote was 102 yes, 96 no. So they voted that one in. For cultivation, it was 90 yes, 109 no. You can buy it here, but you can't grow it here. And for manufacture, now see what's the difference between manufacture and cultivation? It must be the processing. 94 yes, 104 no. And testing, there's another level. Tied on testing. We don't know if you can have a testing facility here because it was 99 yes, 99 no. So I guess it's 198 votes altogether if you do the counting. 198. It's just weird. So this particular small community, the way they answered this with the structure that they had available to them by state law, is they can say no to any one of these tiers, and they said no to all of them except where you can go and buy them. See, now, what happens if, let's just say, for example, in I don't know, just for kicks and giggles, think about it for a second. Come out of your stupor for a second. Think about how in a little community like this, if all these little, because Alaska is a little community in and amongst itself, isn't it? I mean, the entire population of Alaska, the state of Alaska, probably doesn't equal, some of the bigger cities in the United States, the entire state's population. And these little communities, like you see in the gold mining stuff, these little outrigger communities, they originated around gold mining pretty much, primarily, or on trade, or along the Indian routes. But if you look in these little tiny communities, you'll see that this is much the trend. They want to be able to buy it, but you can't process it, you can't manufacture it, you can't. You can't do any cultivation or testing. So if all these little communities in Alaska, if all these little, out towns, because pretty much all of them are out towns, with the exception of maybe a couple, if they all said the same thing, if they all decided they wanted to be able to buy it, but you can't grow it, you can't manufacture it, you can't test it, how does that law work now? Let's say all the communities in Alaska chose the same thing. We want to have some pot shops here, and we want the revenue that comes from that, but we don't want people growing it here because people are going to break in. We know that there's going to be crime around that. It's all a bunch of bullshit. There's no more crime around that than there is anything else where there's a place where people can attack it for its value. Electronics, televisions, computers, cell phones, it goes on and on. These guys all institute their own security measures to keep people from, sucking from those portals. They didn't do it, with the marijuana here. It's just weird that if everybody decided to do that, then where would these shops be buying their marijuana from? If there's no cultivation in the state because none of the communities allow it, and there's no processing and no testing because none of the communities allow it, or if you get these little spring up communities that are like, okay, well, we'll allow all of that stuff. We'll be the place, we'll be the hub, we'll be the outpost where we grow it all. No other cities want to grow it or process it or test it. So we're going to be the one city known for doing all of that. Now, if you want to order a pizza in places in Alaska, you can count on it probably being delivered by a plane in the wintertime. Might even be in the summertime. The Domino's plane's going to land and drop off like 7 pies to the local community. It's just weird. So everybody's got to send off to these little outrigger communities to go purchase their marijuana. Some plane's got to come landing in to supply the local community that doesn't want to allow processing or testing or growing, but you certainly can't buy it here. You know what I mean?
You're getting the full melt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Your old friend the Crypt Keeper here with a Pottober News Bulletin. Ghoulies and creepies gather thee round for a map to patience partying down. As the days grow shorter to the end of month 10, it's time to gather, friend among friend. Michigan card holders, admission is free to the X on the map dubbed Hall Deboween. This lore of free fun is perfectly true, and this is the invite. Yes, that means you. The vendors and speakers this day are just ghosts, exchanged for free entry, free food, and a toast. Asunder our differences this Hallows Eve, so we may bring fire to glorious weed. You may light up and your neighbor may match it. The smoke in the air is to bury the hatchet. The contests you enter are all also free. Considerable prizes for the winners there'll be. Can of meds are welcome. It's alcohol free. The Jam Shack, Mount Morris, from 7 till 3.
Deboween sponsors include Depot Town of Ypsilanti, Sweetleaf, Flint, Harborside, Ann Arbor, Third Coast, Ypsilanti, Dank Team, Flint, Two Guys in a Grow Shop, Burton, Florida Bob's Place, Puff and Stuff of Lansing, Happy Buddha, Lansing, The Spot, Kalamazoo, Compassion Club US of Grand Rapids, Iron Labs, Walled Lake, Herbal Solutions, Ypsilanti, Biocultivation, The Herbal Center of Mount Morris, IDK Farms, Kurtz Leach and Associates of Birmingham, Act Labs, Lansing, Bill Clark Bash Investments, Burton, Hybrid.Life Magazine, Once Bitten, Twice Baked, Plush Lighting in Niles, Cannabis Council, Detroit, Nichols Law Firm, East Lansing, The Green Rock Cafe, Flint, Urban Garden Supply, Flint, also The Marijuana Ranch, Happy Harvesters, The Full Melt Show, Lindy's Bed, Matty Eddie, Flex Cocaine, Jaxca Farm, and BDT Hazel Park.
Got something to hide? Canalock offers discreet and effective storage solutions that destroy odor, so nobody knows. Canalock is a patented charcoal-activated bag that discreetly stores your marijuana. Canalock is made from the same material as military chemical warfare suits. Get yours at Canalock.com. Visit Canalock.com to learn more about no-smell technology.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. Introducing Sacred Elements, a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul. Sacred Elements. It's one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki.
Sacred Elements.
Raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements. Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Door Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570.
Don't miss the first ever cannabis competition this year as the prize contest moves from Amsterdam to Jamaica. That's right, it's all Jamaican fun now with the big competition in Negril this November. Get your best travel accommodations now at JamaicaPot.com. Pack your beach bong and swimsuit and party down at the warm sandy beaches of Negril, Jamaica for the first ever big cannabis event this year. Do it in style or come have fun on a budget. Best travel prices now at JamaicaPot.com. That's JamaicaPot.com.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release. We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade, you got this.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
Congress has turned into 2-year-olds. Swear to God. Welcome back to the Full Melt Show. If you want to chime in on any of the stuff that we talk about on this program, if you want to talk to any of our guests, we provide a toll-free number for you across the country. 844-420-TALK is the Canalock No Smell Bags phone lines number. 844-420-8255. Also, really easy. Look, I got to get back to that the Congress comment. I'll get back to that in a second. Really easy to find us if you want to subscribe to the program. We're available on iTunes. It's really easy to subscribe. Go to thefullmelt.com, click on the iTunes link, and subscribe. That simple. This na-na-ba-ba stuff with the Congress, they're just such 2-year-olds. And they do things, it's so poisonous over there. Colorado's monthly marijuana sales topping $100 million, but Congress still hasn't made any room, even though bills have been introduced asking this question, begging this problem. They won't let you use the bank for your weed money. Marijuana sales blazing past the $100 million mark for the first time ever in August, the Denver Post reporting over the weekend. According to sales data from Colorado's Denver Department of Revenue released Friday, sales of recreational pot topped $59.2 million for the month, while medical marijuana dispensaries pulled in $41.4 million for a combined total of $100.6 million. That's this month. The highest monthly total since legal recreational cannabis sales began there in January 2014. This according to a Yahoo News story. It means that $100 million is going to licensed tax-paying businesses, creating jobs and helping to build new schools, Dan Riffle. It's Dan Riffle. I know Dan. I'm sorry, Dan. There was a hyphenation in your name in the story. I had to look down, and it screwed me up. Dan Riffle, director of the federal policies for the Marijuana Policy Project, told Yahoo News, instead of going to cartels and drug dealers, as is in the case in 46 states that don't regulate marijuana. It was also the 7th time in 8 months that Colorado marijuana sales have exceeded the previous month's total. In May, combined medical and recreational sales totaled $74.31 million, fell marginally from April, which was $74.64 million. In Washington State, retail pot sellers had been enjoying month-to-month jumps until July, when revenues from recreational marijuana were $31.1 million, or down about 6% from June, according to data from the State Liquor and Cannabis Board. Despite the dip, Washington's recreational pot sales are on pace to surpass $300 million this year. And in Oregon, where legal recreational sales began earlier this month, pot retailers pulled in an estimated $11 million, or more than double the $5 million worth of recreational marijuana sold in Colorado the first week it was told to do so, that it was legal. Combined marijuana sales in Colorado, Washington, and Oregon will easily surpass $1 billion this year, and may hit $1 billion in Colorado alone. So where do they stash all that cash, I ask you? And so does this article. For gutting. It's a Sloydian frip. For budding ganjapreneurs, cannabis business owners, and lawmakers from those states, that's the billion-dollar question currently facing the marijuana industry. I've gone through at least 8 banks, Sean Gindy, owner of Colorado's Compassionate Pain Management, told Bloomberg Business. We're on our 15th bank right now. Andrew D'Angelo, director of operations at Harborside Health Center at Oakland, told CNBC in June. According to the U.S. Treasury Department, just 220 of the more than 7,600 banks and credit unions in the country accepted so-called cannabis cash because marijuana is still violating federal law. You know, and these banks have other holdings. They're afraid that the federal government's going to come in and either heavily fine them for accepting that cannabis cash, saying that you're laundering drug money. And they probably would. I don't know, maybe that they would necessarily right now. I think they've actually given them some breadth. But if you've got the word hydroponics in your business name, if you've got the word cannabis or marijuana or meds in your business name, chances are your bank will tell you no. We suspect that your account is laundering cannabis cash. Legal marijuana sellers have been forced to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on security, protecting their cash-heavy businesses with armed guards, armored vehicles, and high-tech vaults, sometimes transporting their cash in duffel bags as if it were marijuana in states where it's still legal. It's still illegal, rather. Federal government and these banking laws are making it so that people have to walk around with tens of thousands of dollars in their businesses, in their cars, in their homes. Michael Julian, CEO of MPS International, a marijuana security company, told Bloomberg. It's putting these people in danger. In July, Oregon Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley introduced a bill backed by their colleagues in Colorado that would give legal marijuana business access to banking services. Similar legislation was introduced in the House, and both bills were referred to subcommittees for review. Of course, they always do that. In the meantime, several private organizations have stepped in to try and help. One of them, called Canna Native, is attempting to link legal marijuana businesses with the American Indian banking system, quote, to use the expertise gained from decades of managing casinos, end quote, Bloomberg reports. Never thought about that. Boy, the Indians got it sewn up there now, don't they? But Riffle doesn't see that as long-term solution. I think rather than finding a way to work around broken and outdated federal marijuana laws, Congress needs to simply fix the law, Riffle said, pointing to a pair of bills, the Respect States Marijuana Laws Act and the Careers Act, that have stalled because Republican chairmen of the House and Senate Judiciary Committees have not held hearings on them despite support from a bipartisan majority. Although a century of failure isn't enough, Riffle said, so they want to give marijuana prohibition a few more decades. And that's what it really comes down to. Look, law enforcement is hooked on the teat of easy pot money. This is low-hanging fruit in the drug community. If you're getting task force money, and it's drying up, for pot, look, remember, the federal government doesn't even have to try to claim jurisdiction, although they probably have it. They've got the shutoff at 100 plants to charge you federally with cannabis cultivation, with violating the Controlled Substance Act for producing marijuana in this country. And that means that they leave everything under 100 plants in the hands of state prosecutors and law enforcement. Everything under 100. Because so many people grow less than 100 plants. The federal government hasn't got the resources to go after all those people. So they leave it to the states, and they leave it as candy on the tree, right? Because all that candy down there, look at all that candy growing down there. You can go pick all those states, go pick all that fruit. It's all hanging there. It's all low hanging. It's nonviolent money. It's easy money because you not only get the cash that you could find from any sales associated with it, but then you get to seize houses and cars and boats and anything else that could be possibly having any sense of value to attach to it whatsoever. It's all just low hanging fruit for police. So if you start rattling that chain, if you start banging on that cage, telling Mr. Policeman, we're going to take away from you all that easy cannabis cash, his head's going to explode. Well, wait a minute. It just, if I'm Mr. Policeman and I've got a union, right? I belong to a police union. I belong to a police officers association, right? I work for the community. I'm a civilian. I'm just in a police organization, but I am considered a civilian. I want to be in the military, but I'm a civilian. I have a civilian badge on. I'm enforcing the laws of the Commonwealth or of the community or of the United States. But Mr. Policeman, his job now has been handed back to him in the form of finding resources for his own department. Congress and local states have all crafted laws that say, you know what, rather than just hand Mr. Police officers' budget some money, rather than just fund those budgets for these police, these organizations, we're going to say go get it from the criminals, right? It's an easier thing to do. It's a way that we can free up tax money that we don't have to spend it on police. We can spend it in schools or spend it in roads or spend it on pork barrel projects because that's where the money goes first. It goes to the pork first. But rather than spend the money, on police, we'll spend it in our special interest places. We don't have to raise any money, but we got new money because it's money that we were going to give to police, but we're not going to do it now because we're going to tell the police instead to go pick that low-hanging fruit. Go gather that cash. You get to keep 80% of it. It's right there in the law. 80% of everything that you go and steal from these people belongs to you. It's a horrible, terrible, and I think intentional purpose of these legislatures across the country and the federal government itself to hang the police with the process of finding their own paychecks. Because then you force policing for profit into play. And now rather than police going out and protecting their communities and acting in the favor of their local citizens, where sometimes they're not even required to live in these communities, so they have no vested interest into them. They've changed all those laws around, a lot of them, especially in failed cities. It's the case, I think, in Detroit that you were supposed to be a resident of the city in order to be a police officer there. And that's an important thing. Because if you're an outsider and you're coming into a city like that, first off, you don't know anything about the turf that you're out there patrolling. And then second off, now that you're in a blind spot in an area, you bump into people, you don't have any connection with them. You don't know who they are. You don't know who their families are. You don't know who they're associated with. You don't know where they work or what the businesses are around there. You're just going to sport pick. You're just going to you're just going to look around and see who's violating a law. Hey, that guy looks suspicious. Pull him over. Let's do a stop and frisk. Let's shake him down. Let's see what he's got to tell us about what's going on around here. Oh, look, he's reached for a gun. Bang, bang. Now, if you knew Leroy before you shot him dead in the streets, chances are you knew he wasn't reaching for a gun because you have some interaction with him. That's why it's important that police live and have a vested interest in the communities that they're enforcing laws inside. Because if you're an outsider, you don't know that community. You're much more abrasive to it, and you present an us versus them mentality rather than saying it's an us looking after ourselves mentality. And this is the underlying, this whole drug war situation underlies all this stuff around people getting, killed by police and the unrest associated with it, because it is this us versus them mentality that you do have these jackbooted thugs pulling up their bootstraps, going out to kick civilians' asses when there seems to be unrest going on somewhere. Rather than finding ways to diffuse these situations and finding ways to calm these, put water on the fire, they go and grab some fuel and they throw that on there instead. And then they bolster their own positions. Hey, you need us around because who else is responding to the violence and the fires in the streets of our cities? Who else is going to do it? You see, it's self-fulfilling this way. The police get more favor from people in Congress and the federal government when these big news stories break out about all this unrest going on. Look, we need more police. We need more first responders, right? It's an easy argument to make, but they're creating the situation themselves. And I'm telling you, the entire business of this unrest is underpinned by this drug war and mostly the war on cannabis. And it's evidenced by these idiots in Congress. About 2 years old. The 2-year-old mentality comes from the money going into the pockets from these special interest groups, including police, including prosecutors, and their and all of their little special interest money groups donating money to their businesses.
You're getting the full melt.
Get ready, let's go. Hey na 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 na. Oh, hey na, let's go. Yeah, I've got style. I'll make it wild. I'll change it up and switch it up so versatile. I'll be myself and I'm gonna let everybody know.
We have the latest styles to mix it and mash it. So make it your own and bend the trend. JCPenney. When it fits, you feel it. During the JCPenney Back to School Hot Sale, get an extra $10 off when you spend $25 or more with coupon. Nike, Converse, Levi's, and other exclusions apply.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release. We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade. You got this.
Don't miss the first ever cannabis competition this year as the prize contest moved from Amsterdam to Jamaica. That's right, it's all Jamaican fun now with the big competition in Negril this November. Get your best travel accommodations now at JamaicaPot.com. Pack your beach bong and swimsuit and party down at the warm sandy beaches of Negril, Jamaica for the first ever big cannabis event this year. Do it in style or come have fun on a budget. Best travel prices now at JamaicaPot.com. That's JamaicaPot.com.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors, and flavors. or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
We ask people to tell us something that happened in their past and something that might happen in their future. The good things were put on yellow magnets and the bad ones on blue. The results show the past was a pretty even mix of good and bad, yet the future was almost all good things. Now that you've seen the results of this experiment, what does it mean to you?
We all want to think about positive stuff.
Realistically, there will be downtimes.
It's great to think optimistically, but let's plan for whatever the future might bring.
Prudential, bring your challenges.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
Hey, I thought this was really interesting. Going to start giving away some prizes on the show. That's right, contesting and prizes. Prize pigs beware! I was a prize pig once. Look, we're going to have some Cadillac bags to give away and some other great stuff coming up in the near future from Grow Green, Michigan. Grow Green is one of these great, fantastical, giant Amazon-like warehouses where they ship all these products for the grow industry across the country. And I'm talking anything that you could get in any cannabis shop selling home gardening equipment, or any home gardening shop for that matter. These guys have it, and they buy it in such giant bulk and ship it all around the country that, they can probably beat most of the local stores, which I'm sure puts a shine on their hides, right? I think when you look at all the money being made in just the businesses that have nothing to do with the actual drug cannabis itself, as far as its sales. People are always like, oh, they got these. They're all drug dealers, right? So you got the cannabis shop guys. Those are the only guys that are handling the pot from a standpoint of giving it to a consumer, right? Those are the only guys. If you consider any drug dealer in the chain, it's got to be that guy, right? The guy that does the dispensary level, at the pot shop level. But there's a whole bunch of other jobs in this area. And now, even if you don't count the guys that are selling weed directly to the public, let's discard all the people that do the cultivation. Let's discard all the people that do the processing. Let's discard all the people that do the transportation. All of those, everybody that handles cannabis itself. Let's discard all those jobs and just talk about the remainder. The remaining jobs propping up this industry exceed 3 to 4-fold the core that we just excluded from the group. I'm just going to say that again. The number of jobs created in the cannabis community, excluding all the people that handle the marijuana itself, anybody that touches it. If you talk about just the jobs created in all the other supportive industries, like the home gardening centers, like the companies that manufacture all the products that show up in the home gardening centers, like the smoking supplies and the head shop places, all of those jobs. And because it's not only the shops themselves that existed but legal cannabis that are there, that are now being supported in a more foundational way. But then there's new shops that have popped up everywhere across the country. Multiple fold. All of the new companies springing up making accessories for cannabis use, making accessories for cannabis production, cultivation, manufacture, processing. Everything from software to hardware to books, information, websites, these home cultivation centers, these home gardening centers. I mean, there's a crap ton of supportive industry that exceeds the core people handling the cannabis itself 3 to 4-fold minimum. I mean, these are very, very conservative estimates. So, to me, there would be a good legal argument to be made against the federal government on the following basis. That, look, Mr. Federal Government, Uncle Sam, you can't have it both ways. You can't both say that cannabis is illegal and you can't use the banking system, and we're going to threaten you at any time along the way with closing down your entire multi-billion-dollar industry in this country alone. Yet, we want to accept all the tax money generated from not only that cannabis sale, and egregiously, because we're dipping in, we're not going to allow any business deductions for said dispensaries or said manufacturers. No business deductions. You can't deduct your electric bill like a normal business. You can't deduct the amount you pay your staff like a normal business. You can't deduct your rent like a normal business. None of your expenses are deductible on your federal tax form. And we're going to tax you at a rate of 90% of the remaining balance, if there is any. Because those are ill-gotten sales. The tax rate for illegal sales of anything is 90%. So we're going to take that money, but we're still going to say, I mean, they've taxed the illegal business and the legal business. They've taken some of it and said it's illicit, and they've taken some of it as legal tax revenue on hundreds of thousands of forms at the IRS level. So they want the employment factor. They love the U.S. Employment people. They love the people that handle all the employment statistics. Those guys love it. Commerce, the U.S. Department of Commerce loves this business about all this employment surrounding the cannabis industry. They want that tax money. They want those people employed. They don't want to have to give those people welfare or food stamps or any other kind of public assistance. That's a great thing, right? That's the American way. They're legitimately accepting these taxes on these supportive industries, and the supportive industries wouldn't be there were it not for the core. And I would just say that it's a legal argument to make to the federal government from a, can you sue the government in this way? Can you take a case like this to the Supreme Court and say you can't have it both ways? Look, they couldn't make this argument 10, 15 years ago. You couldn't make this argument. But now that Colorado and Washington and Oregon and Washington, D.C. and Alaska and all these states are coming on board with medical marijuana to boot, or have already had them entrenched for the past, decade, what are you doing? You can't say that you're going to take that money and then also say that the whole process is illegal. If you're one of these guys that's being, has the boot to his throat because your shop's getting raided by the feds, they're still putting people in prison for decades for cannabis growth on the federal level, while at the same time, coming out of the other side of their mouth, they're letting tribal lands right next door in every state, giving them the option to grow marijuana on a commercial scale as long as they keep it on the tribal reservation. You can't have it both ways. See, they want to jump on the bandwagon. They want to jump on the bandwagon because it stimulates jobs. It's creating taxes. It's going to reduce the debt at some level. And I'm telling you, when the 2016 election happens, a little over a year from now, when that next presidential cycle happens and all these other states come online, both legal and medical, both recreational and medical, the tide's going to turn. There's no holding back the water behind that dike. The cracks in the dike, your finger in that dike isn't going to keep it back anymore. It's all going to break forward in a tidal wave. You can't have people in Congress representing these states and saying they're not corrupt when it's this number of states that are on board, more than half, when you get across the 50% line, Congress has no way to stand back and say they're not doing the people's bidding and instead taking money from special interest groups who have a reason and a cause to keep cannabis illegal because they line their pockets with the money generated by that prohibition. They can't say it anymore because it's too blatantly obvious that they're lying. And at some point, somebody's going to put a special prosecutor on the task, and then they're going to talk about, special interest money in politics and buying votes and politicians picking their voters and all that crap, all the corruption in government, in the United States, because it's rampant. It's terrible. In this state alone, we've got from the watchdog groups a failing grade in our government in Michigan for corruption. I mean, you've got the Gamerick-Courser affair going on at the state Republican House level, where two of these Republicans, Tea Party darlings, have been kicked out. One of them resigning, one of them, getting kicked outright out by the House, ejected from his seat by his fellow Republicans, his colleagues, because of inappropriate activity, both of a sexual nature, both of an immoral nature, and spending the people's money inappropriately, covering that stuff up, pretending like they weren't using those offices for their personal use and not the people's use. Just this little tiny thing. Now, the Republicans here have made a big deal about it. They didn't order any criminal charges. They didn't order any investigations to be done. They simply got them out. Now they're running back for office again. Hey, go back to your districts. You got enough people there. You can pick your voters. We've already picked them for you. Just go back. You can run again. We can't kick you back out once you've been elected back to a new. It's the people. Go on back and get reelected. And that's what they're going to do. But they did this, I think, in this state is a big red herring. As a big bullseye. Pay attention to this over here. Pay attention to this over here. Because there's so much other really, really terrible, horrible corruption going on in this state on the legislative level. The misspending, the misappropriation of the people's power and their money. It's sickening. Back with more after the break about marijuana policy and news next.
You're getting the full melt.
Young students are our future. They're eager to learn, eager to succeed, eager to make the world a better place. And they want to make it to school safely. Share the road, take care when passing, and always leave 3 feet between you and people on bikes. Bikes are legal road vehicles. We're all drivers.
Imagine a world where patients can use marijuana like any other medicine. The Marijuana Patients Organization challenges the status quo by helping our neighbors to enjoy a better quality of life. Visit the MPO at marijuanapatients.org and enjoy informative articles, engaging debates, and information about treatments, doctors, and dispensaries in your area. Over 50,000 people have registered at marijuanapatients.org since 2010. Join us at the Marijuana Patients Organization today, marijuanapatients.org.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit PetPain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. PetPain.com. CBD relief for your pets.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Your old friend the Crypt Keeper here with a Pottober News Bulletin. Ghoulies and creepies gather thee round for a map to patience partying down. As the days grow shorter to the end of month 10, it's time to gather, friend among friend. Michigan card holders, admission is free to the X on the map dubbed Hall Deboween. This lure of free fun is perfectly true, and this is the invite. Yes, that means you. The vendors and speakers this day are just ghosts, exchanged for free entry, free food, and a toast. Asunder our differences this Hallows Eve, so we may bring fire to glorious weed. You may light up and your neighbor may match it. The smoke in the air is to bury the hatchet. The contests you enter are all also free. Considerable prizes for the winners there'll be. Can of meds are welcome. It's alcohol free. The Jam Shack, Mount Morris, from 7 till 3.
Deboween sponsors include Depot Town of Ypsilanti, Sweetly, Flint, Harborside, Ann Arbor, Third Coast, Ypsilanti, Dank Team, Flint, Two Guys in a Grow Shop, Burton, Florida Bob's Plate, Puff and Stuff of Lansing, Happy Buddha, Lansing, The Spot, Kalamazoo, Compassion Club US of Grand Rapids, Iron Labs, Walled Lake, Herbal Solutions, Ypsilanti, Clio Cultivation, The Herbal Center of Mount Morris, IDK Farms, Kurtz Leach and Associates of Birmingham, Act Labs, Lansing, Bill Clark Bash Investments, Burton, Hybrid.Life Magazine, Once Bitten, Twice Baked, Lush Lighting in Niles, Cannabis Council, Detroit, Nichols Law Firm, East Lansing, The Green Rock Cafe, Flint, Urban Garden Supply, Flint, also the Marijuana Ranch, Happy Harvesters, The Full Melt Show, Lindy's Pet, Matty Eddie, Flex Cocaine, Jaxka Farm, and BDT Hazel Park.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio Show.
Concerned Detroiters who cringed at the rapid spread of marijuana dispensaries and medical marijuana card holders who say they rely on the product for treatment packed a public hearing Monday to debate proposed regulations of the city's medical marijuana industry. Today, the Detroit City Council is considering a proposal that includes a way to license the city's approximately 150 medical marijuana shops. The proposal also has zoning, according to the Detroit Free Press, restrictions on how close they can operate near schools, churches, and other dispensaries. Eunice Gant, a lifelong Detroiter, says the growing number of marijuana dispensaries hurts the city's reputation. I'm concerned about the facts that there's so many dispensaries here when you look at other cities, Gant said. We're becoming a laughing joke. Several others at the hearing said they feel safe buying at medical marijuana dispensaries, which often have a security guard on site. Considering the rash of robberies and carjackings, shopping at traditional pharmacies and gas stations in Detroit can be more dangerous, supporters said. There's a security guard there who's able to handle any situation that may come upon me, Pamela McNary said. When I go to the drugstore, I don't know what will happen to me. Detroit council members agree that some rules need to be put in place, but a consensus is lacking on the details. Councilman James Tate introduced his proposal last month. In addition to a licensing process, it would prohibit drive-through service and prevent dispensaries from staying open around the clock. Dispensaries could also not be within 1,000 feet of a school, religious institution, or public park, or be within 2,000 feet of another dispensary. The Detroit Planning Commission is scheduled to discuss the proposed zoning restrictions at its meeting on Thursday. Today's public hearing dealt with the licensing portion of Tate's proposal. Tate said he's not trying to shut down all dispensaries. This is not a witch hunt, as it was characterized. He said this is really a pathway for individuals who need medical marijuana to have that access, safe access. Over the weekend, Councilman George Cushenberry Jr. said he wants to propose alternative rules. Cushenberry sees council's second-ranking member. That's what he is. He wants less restrictive zoning and to allow dispensaries to operate drive-through services. He also suggested that the city wait to deal with the issue until after the state Senate votes on bills to regulate the production and sale of marijuana. I agree we have to have some regulations, Cushenberry said at the hearing. I just don't want to put them all out of business. For many residents on Monday's meeting, The sheer number of the dispensaries in Detroit is alarming. They see several of the pot shops open along 8 Mile near strip clubs and bars. The suburbs don't tolerate the dispensaries, yet they're opening at a fast pace in Detroit, said Tony Russell, a bishop at New Covenant Peace World Impact Ministries on Van Dyke. We need somebody at the table in the city of Detroit saying, this can't happen here, he said. Jermaine Dickens, a consultant working with 420 Dank, a dispensary on Gratiot with drive-through service, said the stores are getting a bad rap. Dickens said the shops are providing legal medicine to people with illnesses. He said there's only been a few shootings in recent years involving dispensaries. As a lifelong Detroiter, I can tell you I expect more than 3 shootings at gas stations in Cody Islands in 1 month, he said. And ain't that the truth? So, as we kick off this week, this Columbus Day, I mean, this is a federal national holiday. No mail today. The mail did not run. You're not going to find, I guess, did kids go to school today? I don't even know. Did they get Columbus Day off? I don't remember. It seems like federal holidays, the schools are closed. I know most federal offices are closed. Do they leave the stock market open? I didn't even look today on the TV. I was busy working on that Daboween commercial. It's really important for these business owners in Detroit to have some kind of process to convert whatever they've established in the absence of regulation or in some would say in the face of state law, contrary to state law, built these businesses and put up with whatever raids or taxing by police, because sometimes they don't even come by and charge anybody. They just come by and they steal all your marijuana out of these shops. They take any of your product, your edibles, your wax, your hash oil, or any of that kind of stuff. They also take your money. They threaten people. They put them in cuffs. They give them the big, stern talking to. They basically scare the shit out of them. And then they walk away. They don't charge anybody. You never hear from them again until the next time they come and steal all your stuff. Now, in the first place, I want to know when these kind of raids happen, and they happen routinely, not only here in Detroit, but also in other places across the state. I know that they've happened in other places across the nation. When these kind of raids go down, what happens to that marijuana? That's what I want to know. Who's policing the police? Because now somebody's in possession of a large amount of marijuana that's not even part of official business, is not part of official duty, because it's not even on a register anywhere. There's no warrant. There's no paperwork to get anything. They're not putting that marijuana in the stash as evidence against somebody because they're not charging anybody. They're not even turning in any paperwork saying that they were even there that day. They're just going in and stealing the drugs and stealing the money. Look, it's a lot easier to do that and not do any paperwork and not report it to their official bosses whatsoever. Or maybe their official bosses are telling you to do it and leave it off the books. I don't know. Again, who's policing the police? I can tell you cannot count on their ombudsman. You can't count on special, the investigative affairs, the people who do internal affairs. You can't count on those people in the police departments. The police are policing themselves. I mean, when the fox is getting into the hen house and you see that the guard at the hen house door is another fox, chances are the hens are going to be limited in numbers, pinned down and afraid, unable to reproduce effectively because the chickens and eggs are getting raided by the foxes. You can't have a legitimate face in this country when you don't have a check and a balance, as was instituted in our federal government across the board with its establishment of the Constitution about separation of powers and checks and balances in our government so that we don't end up in a bad place. And we've subverted some of these checks and balances. I mean, when you've got the police guarding themselves, there's no check and balance there. It becomes unbalanced. It becomes unstable. And then instead of police doing their jobs, enforcing laws, and trying to fight crime in their community, you get the police funding their own paychecks, lining their own pockets with illicit money they're not doing on an official basis.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.